Welcome to Dotegy. With this webinar, we're going to do something a bit more away from our domain name portfolio and use the Internet Intelligence services. As mentioned with Dotegy, you can take as much or as little as you wish, but all the features and functions are linked, so the more you put in, the more you get out. And we'll see that throughout this webinar. So let's get going. As usual, we're going to log in with our previously used webinar account. We're presented with our dashboard, and we're going to select Internet Intelligence on the left-hand side. You're presented with the following options: services, domain activation, whois changes, web page changes, website spider, Tld Domain Alert, eBay Monitor, Alibaba Monitor, and Google Search. All these functions are considered Internet Intelligence and not brand protection, as they are either very lightweight services performed automatically for you or ad hoc on-demand intelligence gathering tools. So let's start with services. As usual, you have management information presented at the top of the screen. How many of each service have we configured? And we have the ability to add new services as we want. What we're looking at here are three very specific types of detection. The first, domain activation, checks every night if a domain name has become active when a website is created for it. Remember, registering a domain name does not mean you have to have created a website. Cyber squatters tend not to have active websites for the domain names they purchase, as they understand this could show evidence of bad faith. So this is a good mechanism to try and catch that. Whois changes does a before and after snapshot of the public information for a domain name and returns you the differences. So for example, if the ownership of a domain name changes, or the privacy information is lifted so the real ownership information is present, or the delegation changes, you'll be notified of all these types of change. The final service is web page changes. It's the next logical step after domain name activation. Imagine today I capture the fact a domain name has been registered, and tomorrow I see that a website has been created. If I then want to monitor the changes to a specific web page, this service allows me to do that. What we're trying to catch here is further evidence of bad faith, if someone starts to reference my company, brand, or products on a web page. You can see there is a grid of all the services I have configured at the moment. And if there is a plus sign available, you can simply click on that to activate a new service for the domain name or URL. Alternatively, you can select the name or URL from the grid, and then change the service as you want to below. Back to our menu, and the next three options are the results of these daily checks I've configured. So domain activation. I can see Dotegy has checked my domain name from two separate locations, France and Canada, and taken a screenshot if a domain name has become active. It also shows deactivation of a domain name. So if you're trying to track an enforcement, you'll see the deactivation and receive a notification here too. Clicking on any image brings up a carousel below where you can see every day that Dotegy has taken these screenshots, and it can provide you with a kind of side-by-side comparison. Whois changes. Again, we're looking at the results of the daily checks I've configured, and once again, Dotegy is using multiple locations to try and get around blocking mechanisms. I'll explain a little bit more about that later on. Clicking on any of the ticks if they exist brings up a comparison of yesterday's and today's information. If you see a cross, it means there's been no change in whois. Web page changes. It's doing exactly the same as the other two functions, showing me any web page changes that have occurred between yesterday and today, and with a history. Again, clicking on the tick brings up the changes between that day and the day before. The test.dotegy.html page we're looking at here is added to your account for free as a sanity check, as it's changed every day to some random text. Changes to images on a web page are captured as well and are sent as part of the overnight email to the account holder. So if you're interested to know what images someone is using with or without permission on a page, you can track that too. A quick word on multiple locations. This is sometimes described as proxies, and is a common method to try and get around blocks people put in place to try and hide from you. In the case of websites, counterfeiters or people trying not to be found by the brand holder can put ranges of IP addresses in a block that means those machines cannot access the website. By using a proxy based somewhere else in the world, you can get around this block. Website spider. This service is an ad hoc intelligence tool. Say for example you've been notified of a domain name that exists and you suspect might be selling counterfeit goods, and perhaps not just your brand but many brands. The domain name is generic, something like cheapshoes.com for example, and therefore not in itself using your brand name. With the website spider, we can ask Dotegy to crawl all over the website and bring back all the web pages it finds. At the same time, we can ask Dotegy to look for our keywords. Those might be brand names, product names, company names that we want to try and find. Further to this, you can ask Dotegy to check against images you've uploaded to see if that image is being used on any of the web pages. Crawling a website can be pretty intensive, so the larger the website, the longer this function takes. It's also significantly more intensive if you look for images as well. We'll use a simple example here. Once we've started the search, you can see an option will appear to add this as a daily service. This means if you want to repeatedly check a URL automatically, you can let Dotegy do this and notify you of the results. See here that Dotegy has a column for the URL, if it has matched any of the keywords you asked it to look for, and a match between 0 and 100% against the image if you selected one. All the results are downloadable, so if you need to present information to another person, this is the easiest method. Tld Domain Alert. With the launch of over 600 new top-level domain names between 2014 and 2017, we've seen a rapid expansion of the internet. This puts brand owners under increased pressure to make sure they are protected. Having a domain name strategy helps you decide whether to block, buy, monitor, or ignore, something covered in one of our previous webinars. Here we can do an ad hoc search of all the new GTLDs for keywords we might be interested in, normally our brand, product, or company. You'll see again once we start this ad hoc search, we are presented with an option to add this as a daily monitoring automatically. The function we are using right now is useful if someone has asked what their current exposure or their problem space might be to the new GTLDs. The overnight checking is very useful if you want to stay on top of this problem. Those people with TMCH will already be covered by a service very similar, but for those people not able to add their brand or product with a TMCH, or simply not choosing to, this is a viable alternative. With the results, you'll see Dotegy has tried to match the findings against the portfolio information you've uploaded. Remember at the beginning I said the more you put in, the more you get out. Well, there's not much point in Dotegy flagging a new GTLD registration you made. Whilst the TMCH service cannot detect if this domain name is owned by you or not, simply adding this domain to your portfolio will stop Dotegy bothering you with what you already know. Again, you can download these results to share or take offline. eBay Monitor allows you to search any of the listed eBay stores for keywords of interest, generally brand names, product names, and company names, along with associated keywords like cheap, moins cher, or with typos. Counterfeiters deliberately use typos on some marketplace sites to try and delay detection. Again, once you start the search, Dotegy presents you with the option to add a daily monitoring service that automatically covers all the eBay stores. Results are again downloadable to share or review offline. Alibaba Monitor is the same principle as eBay. Search the store for certain keywords to identify the level of threat that exists at the moment. Using the daily service will allow you to then track new listings and deletions on a regular basis automatically, but this function gives you a, at the moment, what's my current problem? The final option is Google Search. Here we can select a specific Google location and use our keywords to identify potential URLs to investigate. Here we are not directly detecting potential problems on the web pages, but using Google to create a potential list of follow-up URLs or pages to check. Again, there is an option to perform this on a daily basis, which will use all Google locations to bring back an Uber list of results. This function always deletes previous results as you want Google information to always be fresh and not out of date. We can see that once again Dotegy has checked the URLs returned by Google to make sure the domain names are not part of your portfolio. It might be interesting to see where you are positioned as a marketeer, but as a counterfeit intelligence tool, You don't want to receive false positives. As mentioned, these results are really the first stage. It presents you with an Analyze button that then does the research on the domain name or URL itself. Exactly the same as in the Portfolio Strategy function. You can then decide to start following domain activation, whois changes, web page changes, or to spider an entire website for all potential references of your brands, products, or company. So you can see that the Internet Intelligence toolset to Dotegy is pretty comprehensive and offers a mix of ad hoc investigation with potential daily tracking. New marketplaces are being added on a continual basis, so expect to see this space grow in the future.